Great. So I presume we can all see the slides. I'm not the only one looking at it. Okay. So just assume that the silence means we all can see it. Okay. So the School of Graduate Studies was essentially established in 1962, and the core responsibility of the school is essentially to coordinate graduate studies program across the entire university. As the Pro-VC mentioned in her presentation, there are 4 colleges and many schools that constitute the University of Ghana. And so naturally, there are many programs that run here at the university. And so to ensure that our quality is quite uniform across the different programs that we run, the School of Graduate Studies then plays a very critical role in ensuring that we can actually A, guarantee that the quality doesn't drop, but B, that the quality differences are also minimized as much as possible. There are 6 specific responsibilities that we broadly, the School of Graduate Studies has. The first has to do with admissions, and I believe that for those of you who have taken the important step of applying, you would have actually gone through some of the things that I will speak to. But we actually essentially coordinate the admissions process, and we ensure that the minimum requirements for entry into postgraduate studies here for the different levels are all met before even the academic units will then take that on and then do their shortlisting. But also consistently and continuously, we review our graduate programs, and they go through accreditation and re-accreditation. So again, we are the unit that is charged with the responsibility of ensuring that the graduate programs are meeting, again, the quality standards that I mentioned, and also are actually accredited by the National Accreditation Board. So whatever graduate programs academic units want to introduce, it will have to go through the School of Graduate Studies, and there is a committee in the School of Graduate Studies that looks at these programs and see whether the programs meet the minimum quality requirements in terms of the structure of the courses, the structure of graduation, the admission requirements, etc., etc. Before we then pass it on back to the colleges, and then they end up at the main academic board, where it is then discussed and approved where necessary. We also provide, if you like, again, the quality assurance with respect to supervision of students within the university. Like most of you would know, most of the graduate programs will involve either a dissertation, a thesis, a long essay, special topics. Again, it requires that we have faculty members who can guide students through these steps because it is an important or critical component of the programs or the graduate training, postgraduate training that we undertake here. Now, once students have undertaken, and this is specific to dissertations and theses, they've undertaken their thesis and dissertations, they will have to then be processed for examination. Again, this is specific to the dissertations and then thesis. This is actually done through the graduate school, where we send to examiners for the examiners to look at the work, and they send us reports, and these reports are then compiled, and then we have a determination of whether students have actually met the requirements with respect to University of Ghana and consistent with the national accreditation. So note that in all that we do as a university, there are certain, if you like, rules that guide us in our requirements for graduation. And so at every point, we ensure that we are meeting those requirements and then we do not fall short of any for our students. So we determine results of students, and of course, we also do the publication of the results, following which students then will graduate. Now, the school comes directly, again, this I think the Pro-Vice Chancellor talked about. We are directly under the Pro-Vice Chancellor's office, but it also has a board with membership from the college's academic board, as well as the main university academic board, that help the dean of the school to actually make decisions that help the school in supporting the broad university's vision of becoming a research-intensive university with a significant component of our student body being graduate students. There are 3 committees currently under the board, one that looks at programs development and admissions, one that looks at the examination or the determination of the examination, particularly when we have situations where, for instance, you have 2 examiners and one refers a student's thesis, the other does not. What then happens in those situations? Again, the examination committee critically examines these things and then reach a conclusion based on the reports that the examiners gave. Currently, we have over 240 graduate programs spanning the 4 colleges that the Pro-VC mentioned. Our graduate population is roughly a little over 5,000. And so it's sort of making only about 12% or so of the entire student population. The university's vision, though, that the Pro-Vice Chancellor shared with us, is to actually push up that proportion significantly, so that the ratio of graduate students to undergraduate students is one to one. In other words, about 50% of the student population will be graduate students. Okay, so there is a lot of work that the university is doing in order to drive this. And again, some of the things is what the Pro-VC shared. Now, in terms of the admissions procedure, once you do your application online, and the applications typically before the applications are even advertised, we confer with the heads of academic units on the programs that they will be running in the next academic year. And based on that, we advertise, and then prospective students can then apply online. Now, once you finish the application process, the School of Graduate Studies will look at the requirements. There are broad requirements for the school. And so we look at the requirements for each and every given application. Once they satisfy the minimum requirements as per the university's regulations, we then pass on the application to the academic units, who then will also have their own process by which they select students. Some may write entrance exams, some do some form of shortlisting based on the courses that you've done, etc., etc. And then some also will be doing interviews. But it's all in a bid to better understand the type of students who are applying, and then match those with the academic unit's own preferences in terms of what they want to deliver. So once they have shortlisted and approved on a set list, they then will inform the School of Graduate Studies, and then we will then write to successful applicants. Now, in terms of the requirements for admissions, for the master's level, the basic requirement is that you must have a good first degree, and typically what a good first degree means is that it must be a second class lower or better from an accredited university. And that is important because, I mean, if the university is not accredited, clearly we think it is not appropriate, and indeed the accreditation board also does not recommend that we give admission to students who do not come from accredited universities. Now, even though typically a good first degree is second class lower or better, we also do give the academic units the opportunity to extend admissions to potential applicants with third class who have some work experience or other qualifications that the academic units feel can help or provides a good foundation for these students, for them to build on in terms of the training of these students for the postgraduate program. For our PhD program, requirements are two levels. You can actually enter the PhD program with a first degree or with a master's. And even though you can enter with either a first degree or master's, it doesn't necessarily mean that you would all come to the same level in terms of the PhD. And this is essentially because since 2014, we have a new PhD structure which has a coursework component as well as the research component. Indeed, it has three components. It has a coursework component, it has an experiential component, and then it has the research component. Now, for the coursework component, for those who come in with first degree, then they will have to take first level 600 courses, which is essentially master's level courses. And then once they've passed, they will be assessed. And then based on that, the department will recommend whether they can progress to the PhD level, and which will then mean that you now will then go and then start doing the level 700 courses. Now, for those who will enter with just the, those who will enter with a master's level degree, they will start with level 700 courses, after which they can then go on to do their comprehensive exams, after which they will then do experiential, which is a minimum of 6 months. And after the experiential learning, then they can then start working on the research component of their PhDs. So of course, in this presentation, we certainly are going through these slides quickly, but you can always get back to us if you need further clarification. But also if you went to the School of Graduate Studies website, we have the handbooks which speak to some of these things that I'm presenting here. Okay. Now, in terms of the structure of academic sessions, regularly, the academic session comprises of 2 semesters. The first semester, typically, of course, this year is an abnormal year, but typically the first semester begins between August and December, and then the second semester between January and then May. The semester typically has about 17 weeks in total. And of the 17 weeks, for those who are attending lectures, i.e. the master's level students, 13 weeks of the 17 weeks is for lectures, 1 week is for revision, and then the remaining 3 weeks is for examinations. Of course, if you are a research student, for instance, if you are in your second year of the MPhil or your second year of the PhD, then we expect that you'll be working flat out, of course, with your supervisors. So even though technically the semester is for 17 weeks, for most faculty, they can still be assessed during the off-semester breaks. So for part-time programs, it normally takes twice as long for the master's level, but it's not in all cases. For instance, for the 2-year programs, their part-time components or their part-time equivalents will normally take an extra 2 semesters. And so, for instance, if you were to do a regular MBA, it's 4 semesters. However, if you wanted to do the MBA on a part-time basis, that will be 6 semesters. For the PhD, full-time PhD is 4 years. On a part-time basis, you are looking at about 6 years. The good thing in terms of the PhD, I must say, is that with the new structure, we have seen a significant turnaround of PhD students who are graduating. I think last year we had over 130 PhDs who graduated, which is quite commendable given where we started around 2013. We just had around 10 PhD students graduating. So it has come far, and the growth is significant, and it does not seem to be slowing down anytime soon. So again, this is the time to be part of that growth. Okay, now the graduation requirements for the different programs, they vary for the master's program, the 1-year master's program particularly, depending on whether the student or the program requires you to do a dissertation or a long essay or non-dissertation. Okay, so if you do a dissertation, the dissertation will typically come with a higher load in terms of credits. And so the dissertation comes with 12 credits. And what that means for the total credits that you will need to graduate is that the total is likely from the upper end to be higher than that for those who will be doing the non-dissertation, whether it's long essay or whether it's special topics. Okay. So the minimum requirements in terms of credits that you need to be able to graduate is 39. However, I think one of the things that typically we are beginning to realize students ignore is that they only take this and forget that there is another requirement with respect to the final grade point average. Your final grade point average has to be at least 2.50. And so even if you have 51 credits and you are doing a program that requires you to take dissertation and you've got all the 51 credits, if the 51 credits does not give you 2.50 final grade point average, you will not qualify for graduation, okay? So again, this is something that is worth pointing out. For the 2-year programs, if it's 2-year program without dissertation, such as the MBA program, then they, and say the LLM as well, they will have a minimum of 60 credits and a maximum of 72 credits. One of the things I forgot to mention when I was sharing with you the requirements for the 1-year master's program is that the seminars are compulsory. So for every year that you spend on campus, you have to do 1 seminar at least. Okay, we think this is important for postgraduate studies, and it is something which is done everywhere in the world, because you are building postgraduate studies even for those that are terminal degrees, and that's not necessarily lead you into the field of academia. Even in the real world, as they say, you will still have to be leading presentations. And so seminars are a good basis or way by which we train our students to be ready for the real world. For the 2 years thesis options, they take less courses. So the coursework requirement is much less, but of course, what it means is that your thesis component has quite a lot of credits. And so you do 30 credits there for the thesis component, as opposed to the 2-year course, which does not include dissertation or thesis, which then gives you just 6 credits for the long essay. The PhD program, in terms of the credit requirements, is between 75 and 81. And as I mentioned earlier, the PhD program also has coursework component. Following that, you will then have to do 4 seminars over the 4-year period. Although for the PhD, for the first year, you do not do a seminar, but you do 2 seminars in year 2, and then you do 1 seminar in year 3, and then 1 seminar in year 4. The thesis component of a PhD, of course, has quite a big component, and is more than 50% of the total credit requirements, which essentially is saying that we place quite a lot of importance on the thesis, and that is why the weight is that high. Now, of course, for University of Ghana, we also think that international engagements from the supply side is important for our students generally, and in terms of becoming very competitive globally, okay? Now, the international engagements, that platforms that we provide, you can look at from 3 different points. The first has to do with essentially faculty members engaging in research collaborations, and then based on that, having their students working on these research projects with, in quite a number of cases that we see, the student having one or sometimes 2 of their, for instance, in the case of PhD, their supervisors being international supervisors. So, for instance, if you are doing some research projects with collaborators in Harvard, you could have two of your the supervisors from the University of Ghana and then one from Harvard. However, the main supervisor will always be from the University of Ghana and normally from the academic unit that the student belongs to. So that is one arm by which, again, we begin to expose our students to international engagements. The other is exchanges where students spend some time in the collaborating institution. And so again, we've seen and we have quite a number of examples here where students will go either as interns or just research time they spend in the collaborating institution. For instance, I know a little bit more about economics because I'm an economist. So the economics development program, for instance, the students spend about 3 months in Finland as part of with the United Nations University there as part of their experiential. But there are also others where students go to Denmark to spend some time with collaborating institutions there. The other sort of way that we have international engagements that have positive implications for the students that we are producing, the postgraduate students that we are producing, is with respect to the examination of theses and dissertations. For all dissertations and theses, the regulations require that we have at least one external examiner. Of course, an external examiner could be within country Ghana or it could be outside of Ghana. For the thesis, that is the PhD thesis, we need 2 external examiners and 1 internal examiner. Okay, and so again, internationally, we have all sorts of very, very good and leading professors who are examining dissertations and theses. And again, the whole essence of having these people examine dissertations and theses is to essentially quality assure that the students that we are producing and the research that is coming out from the students or the graduate training programs are at a level that is globally competitive. Indeed, earlier this year when we were in one of our PhD divers, there was one examiner who said something which was quite remarkable for one of our students. And he essentially said, and I'm paraphrasing, that the thesis and the oral examination that the candidates did, and he has examined all across the world, was by far one of the best he had actually examined. And this is a very experienced examiner. And again, it was heartwarming for all of us. Of course, I'm not a supervisor or of the students necessarily, but certainly given that it's part of the University of Ghana and a graduate student, we were actually very, very excited by some of these comments. Of course, where comments also come which are negative, we immediately engage with the academic units on how to improve those. Okay, and finally, we also have different platforms for providing opportunities for postgraduate students to attend international conferences and workshops. Again, for most of us that are today part of the panel that is speaking to you, we have all benefited from being international students or international postgraduate students at some point in time. And one of the key things that you actually will begin to realize is the fact that the platforms that they provide in terms of attending international conferences and workshops is an incredible platform for not just networking, but for also building your confidence in terms of what you are doing and how to share your ideas with respect to the research that you are doing. So on that note, I think I will stop here. Thank you very, very much.